Hello, beautiful people. I just figured I would share with you today how to do a couple of things. This is probably going to be a longish video, um, but that's okay. If you've been here at my channel before, you know that I make homemade lye soap. And one of the things that I use is beef tallow. Now, I put some information on TikTok. But today, here I show you, we're gonna make some tallow because I am completely out of tallow. And I thought you might want to come along for the ride and see how I do tallow. Now, we are in the middle of a remodel right now, so forgive me for any messes that you see. You're just gonna have to really bear with me. So let's show you first what I do. I'm gonna flip the camera around. Okay, so here is my beef fat. I actually go to my local IGA and I just call up there and say, hey, can I get some beef fat? I need to render down, make some soap. And they'll tell me, yeah, we'll get it for you. It'll be ready, and they'll call me when it's ready, and I just go pick it up. So I have two packages here, different, both from the same store. It's the only place really in town close I can get it, so that's what I use. Now I put this in the freezer overnight because we didn't have time, so it's a little frozen. What you need to get started rendering down some beef fat is you're going to need some water and a big canning pot. This is what I use because you don't want to cook the no, you don't want to cook it. All you want to do is melt it down. Now, a lot of people, like, I looked at this yesterday, it doesn't have a lot of meat chunks on it, so I don't have to really go through and cut the meat chunks out. But if you did have, fairly big meat chunks, you would want to go through and cut that out. It'll make your filtration to filter your tallow and strain it out a lot easier than if you have really big chunks in it. Now, the technique I use is not the technique that everybody else uses. So if you are really interested in making tallow and want to render the beef fat yourself, then I would check out some other techniques as well and find out your own groove. I think it's worth a mention that you can make tallow from goats and deer and any livestock animal like that. So if you have access to, it's deer season right now, so if you get a deer and you find fat, you can render it down into a tallow. Goat, you can render down to a tallow. And I believe you can render sheep down to tallow as well. So I'm gonna try and record this as I put everything in my pot. Now, the water is so that your tallow doesn't burn. You don't want a lot of water in there, again, because once we get it all melted down, you are going to have to render it and strain it and all that. So if the more water you have, then the more issues you're going to have with straining. So I just use my quart jar for all this, and that'll give me enough water to where my tallow won't burn it, but it will allow my tallow to cook down. So I'm going to pause this for a minute and see if I can get you situated to where you can see what I'm doing in the pot. Okay, so we're going to take our beef package. This is 5.22 pounds. Like I said, this is frozen, so this may take me a minute. I'm very careful not to make a mess. goes in the pot. Second package goes in the pot. There's about 11 pounds of beef fat. There's some, it says frozen. I cannot get it apart, so I can't get that meat out of there. So I'll just have to take extra time in filtering it. Now your water goes in on top of your beef fat. And then we're going to take this, and you can either put this in the oven or you can put it on top of the stove and let it cook down. I'm going to do mine on top of the stove. There's a lot to do today, so this may be a longish video. Today I'm pausing and coming back. So I don't edit my videos either, so I don't do any of that. So everything you get is going to be raw material. If you don't like that, you might want to go elsewhere. I'm human. I'm not perfect, and I make mistakes. I'm just trying to show you some of the techniques that I use so you can use them. Or if you just are fascinated by the making of soap and different things the soap makers do, then you can follow along and watch us. So I'll be back. Okay, so I have my pot on the stove. We're just gonna let all this kind of melt down with the water in there, and I'll keep you updated on as we render this tallow. Melt it all down. I'll probably end up doing some flame turning so that it doesn't actually cook. That's not our goal. In past experiences, when I've made tallow, I put some on TikTok. I usually render out, I've done twice as much as this right now in the middle of a remodel. I didn't want to try and be rendering 20 to 30 pounds of tallow at a time. I have done that much. So just so that I can have lots of tallow on hand, and then I put it in mason jars, which I'll try and make sure I show you each step as I go. So now we have to set up and make some hot process soap. I had a gal that wants some honeysuckle, and we have to make some lotion. So bear with me and we'll be back. Okay, so let's see. I'll show you my beef tallow. I did have to turn the flame way down. You can start to see some of it starting to melt down there. So that's going good. So fun fact, tallow actually stays on top of the water because it is an oil. So we're gonna leave that. Come over here. My coffee. But let's look at what you're gonna need. A bowl for oils, measuring cups for lye water, a scale. This is the scale I use for all my stuff to weigh and measure because you want accuracy. Of course, you're gonna need oils. I got castor oil, jojoba oil, olive oil, corn oil, coconut oil, and of course essential oil that is steam distilled. This is honeysuckle. I just got it, so I'm excited to use it. The other thing you're gonna need is some lye. And if you guys have watched my videos, I have told you that this is not the the best to use, but it will make soap. I'm actually out of my other soap, or out of my other lye. So we're just going to use this. It works. It's 100% lye. It's marketed as a drain cleaner, but it's 100% lye. I've used it in the past. And then you do want to use distilled water, but if you don't have distilled water, you want to use a boiled water. So I have my little tea kettle, my electric tea kettle that I've already boiled water in. So that's all ready to go. We need crock pots, of course spoons. I do one for my lye water and one for my oils. Once you mix everything, use whichever spoon for whatever. But in the process of making, because I don't like to mix my spoons until everything's combined in the crock pot for a hot process. So I use 2 different spoons. The other thing is an immersion blender. My husband bought me for this for my soap making, almost a year ago or so. It's pretty awesome. Most of my oil, or my corn oil, which I know that's a debatable oil, that oil does come through heating. The person I'm actually making this for, I asked her before I made the recipe if she was allergic to anything, coconut oil, corn oil, and she said no, I really want honeysuckle. I said okay. So I always try to make sure when somebody asks for a specialty soap, if they have allergies to anything, because if they're allergic to coconut oil or corn oil and I use that in a recipe, it could be very bad. So I always ask. Now I'm going to say, before you get started, put your gloves on, put eyewear on if you have to. I do not. I've said that in my previous videos. I had another soap maker that was like, why don't you do that? It's a sensory issue. So I'm just very careful about what I touch. I have a lot of sensory issues, so I have to do it my way. But if you're new at this, I don't know how well you can see, I do have lye burn. I always have my vinegar on hand, so if the lye gets on me, I can quickly alkalize it. However, put your eyewear on, put your gloves on. It can burn. So with that out of the way, let me get you positioned so we can start measuring everything out, so we can get it all in our crock to start making some hot process soap. Okay, so I forgot to show you guys this. This is the recipe I'm going to be using today. So just in case you're curious of what I'm using, I know for me, when I'm researching how to do stuff, having a recipe really helps when they walk me through step by step, and then I can try and do it. So now we are ready to measure out all of our oils. I'm going to try my best to show you the scale, so I might just show you that real fast, but we are going to put all of our oils in the bowl. So you're going to turn it on, make sure it's zeroed out, and then you can start weighing out your oils. Now this is where the tricky part comes in, because when you are weighing out oils, and butter here, you need to make sure you're weighing your hard oils with the scale, but you need to make sure you're weighing your liquid oils with liquid. Now, like, here's a little 1 ounce shot glass, has the measurements on it. It's what I use for, my castor oil and my jojoba oil. So there's 4 ounces. Now I need 16 ounces of coconut oil to go in here. So I zero that back out. And if I can do this one-handed, because the coconut oil is very hard. Now, coconut oil is one of those oils that I know is arguable as far as, you know, whether how you're supposed to measure it, because this is weighed out in ounces. I weigh mine out, so I'm gonna put you over here. Hopefully, oh, why I weigh out my oils. So coconut oil, because it's measured in ounces, then they say, well, the weight's incorrect, you should melt it down, do this, do that. I honestly didn't come to this until, didn't realize this until about a year or so after making soap. I have always measured my coconut oil out by weight and hard form. I have actually done an experiment for the coconut oil to see what the difference was between weight and liquid, and there's not a lot. So if you have, you know, coconut oil and you've been told about this argument, or you know of this argument, or maybe you just want to search it out better for yourself, I just find it's easier to do it this way. This is a 76-degree melting point oil. So I really like to use the coconut oil. My other favorite oil is tallow, which is why we're making some, due to just its properties. And honestly, if we were going to make some for real old time soap, they would probably have made it out of tallow, deer, goat, stuff like that. Animals they had, probably even pork. We don't eat pork due to scripture, Leviticus chapter 11. So next best thing is beef, and I don't have cows that I take in, so the next best thing is to go to my local markets and see what's available for fat to render down into tallow. We're at 13.6, 14.4. Not an expert at this either. I'm just showing you some of my techniques, some of the stuff that I do. I'm in a very big learning stage right now with my soaps, and I'll show you some of that here in a little bit as we go through this day. 15.7. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. Put all that back in there because I don't like to waste. So, okay. Now we have some jojoba oil, so you guys can see it's liquid oil. So I do measure it out. This recipe I've created says 1 ounce. 1 ounce, and it goes into the bowl. Jojoba oil is really good for the skin. I really like it. And then castor oil, I use 1 ounce of that. Again, it's really good for the skin. Also creates lots of fun bubbles in your soap. I use 1 ounce of castor oil in about every soap that I make. So when other people get it, or if they buy it, or if I give it, they have a nice bubbly bar of soap. Now, a little fun fact. I just want to show you real fast. So this is a pound to ounce scale. So there was a point in time that using my scale, because it said ounces on it, for measuring all of my oils, liquid, hards, everything. So one day my husband and I sat down and we measured everything out in fluid ounces, and then we poured it into the bowl on the scale to see how accurate the ounces were on the scale, and it is off. So now I measure all of my liquid oils with a liquid measuring cup, because the scale's not accurate for the liquid oils, which was really weird because I would think that if they were ounces, but the poundage, for like your hard oils, the poundage for your fluid ounces are different. So let's get that going. My tripod isn't really available at the moment, so I'm doing my best to show you what I'm doing on this. Okay, so now we need 8 ounces of olive oil, cold extracted, cold pressed, organic. Usually if it says cold pressed, cold extracted, that's the ones I will go for first. Need 8 ounces of olive oil. And 4 ounces of corn oil. Now, I don't know if anybody else uses this. I use it. I'm going to tell you why. Because it makes your soap creamy. Most of my recipes, it also gives me the linoleic acid that I find it very hard. I'm sure if you use like a shea butter or a cocoa butter, you might find that acid. If you are a fellow soaper and you know how to get that acid, let me know. Unfortunately, in this recipe, it did not give me that acid. I'm not really sure why. Most of the time when I use corn oil, I do get the linoleic acid so I can hit all the acids for the skin. However, it is a very conditioning oil for your skin. It is not a cold pressed. I don't really think there's a such thing as organic corn oil right now. If there is, I haven't found it. But if you have thoughts on corn oil, or where to get a better corn oil, or how to hit that linoleic acid without using corn oil, and you're a fellow soaper, let me know, because I would love to find out. This is something between this and grapeseed oil. I know there's been a lot of controversy over what to use, what not to use. With that being said, hopefully this will show you don't have to have anything special to make soap. You can make soap out of any oil that you have laying around. So I use a variety of oils, My most common oils I use are the coconut and the olive oil. So it's our olive oil and our corn oil. And we're going to pour that into our bowl. So if you're just wanting to play around and make your own soap, Walmart. You know, Walmart. It's the only place around me that I can, like, if I run out of my lye that I get off of Amazon, that's actually a soap lye. It's the only place around me I can find this lye. Is at Walmart, unfortunately. I need to order some more of the good lye to get it out there. However, if you are just interested and you want to try and make your own, the coconut oil, this is organic, virgin, unrefined, non-GMO. Does not say cold press though. So I get this one at Walmart, I get the lye at Walmart, and I get this at Walmart. Along with butter, you can get anywhere. The corn oil I get at Walmart. My jojoba oil, castor oil, almond oil, grapeseed oil, all those oils I do order from Amazon. And I try to stick with the same. I'm really happy with the company that makes these. They make lots of brands and they have fair prices for the oils, so I really do enjoy using their oils. So now let's see, how about we go over here and let you take a look at our tallow. Melting, melting, melting. That's good. Okay, so that. Okay, now you can take your oils out of your bowl. You got them all measured out. In the crock pot. My crock pot is old. I use this only for soap. I do not use it for food because that's what lye does to my crock pot. And I go through a crock pot a year. This is a basic crock pot. About every single year, my husband has to buy me a new one because all this starts flaking and I don't like it in my soap. So I tell him about due for a new one. I'm going to put my temperature gauge on high. Okay, there's the recipe. And then all your oils are just going to go in here so they can melt. Okay. All together, let them melt down and be immersed together. Pause this so I can get all the oil out of there. Okay, so time for the lye and water. Now this is where I'm going to tell you, if you're new at soap making, some people have yelled at me, it's okay. If you're not new at soap making, goggles and gloves, because we're about ready to measure out our lye and our water, which creates a caustic solution and will burn you. At the beginning of the video, I showed you my lye burns on my hand. So now, just like we did the oils, you're going to measure out your lye by weight and then your water by fluid ounces. At times I have just used my scale and measured out the water, which is okay. It's within a couple points of being here and there. However, if you want more accuracy, use your water measuring cup for the fluid ounces. So mine calls for 10.4 fluid ounces of water. So make sure everything's clean because lye will bond to any type of oil, which is why you get lye burn, by the way, because it'll bind to the oil on your skin and create soap, which is also why I use vinegar on hand anytime I'm making soap at any time. It interrupts that process and stops the burn. So if you're like me and do things in a hazardly way, then make sure you at least have vinegar on hand, because if it splashes you or gets on you, it will burn you. So let's see if I can get you over here. This might be a longish video. Okay. So my recipe calls for 10.4 ounces of water. Oh, start at 8. It's 8. Okay. Then set that aside. Clean cup, clean spoon, because lye will bond with oil. You don't want your lye creating soap until you're ready for it to create soap. If I can get this open, 5.1 ounces. So you can see, flip you over here so you can see what I'm doing. Just pour it in. If you put too much lye, then you could end up with a caustic soap. If you don't put enough, you could end up with not a fully saponified soap. So being sure you measure accurately is important, and being careful not to see it. And that's why I say make the slide bubbles up. That slide that's gotten moisture and doesn't want to come out. Careful with your pouring accuracy. There we go, 5.1 ounces. I have animals, so I don't want this to pour all over the floor. I have kids, so after I use my lye and after I make soap, I always go through and wipe everything down with vinegar, just so that nobody gets burnt. My dogs don't eat it. I would much rather nobody get sick. A lot of the stuff you see me use, I said this in some of my previous videos, I only use for soap making. But just in case there is a chance one of my children decide to use it for other things, I always wash everything down with vinegar to alkalize and get all the lye out. And then I wash it real good with hot and soapy water. So if you're just kind of curious about that, that's how we do it. So I am going to go outside and mix this lye, because you don't ever want to mix lye water inside. It does come off. That's what I call it. It does heat up. It does put chemicals in the air. I don't mix it inside. And you always want to put the water into the lye so it doesn't splash up and get you. So you gotta wait out. You're just gonna mix it together. In some of my previous videos, I have showed the lye mixing. So if you are interested in how to do that, you can go make sure you have your glasses and gloves on when you mix your lye water so that you do not get lye burn. Okay, we'll be back. So let me correct myself real quick. I just mix my lye, put my water in my lye. You put the lye in the water. I went outside to mix my lye and I went, oh, I just told them incorrectly. Lye into water very slowly, and you want to stir as you are mixing it. That way it doesn't splash up. It does heat up. It will boil if you add it too fast or if your water's too hot. So always lye crystals into the water. You let it set aside, cool down, come off, do its thing. While your oils are heating up in the crock pot, you make sure oils are melted. A lot of times they say you need to have like a 10 degree, within a 10 degree, with your oils and your lye water. With hot process soap, I started doing that and I have found that for me, it really didn't make a difference in my hot process soap. Now, I have stayed away from cold process soap just because I have limited room in the house to let it sit, because you have to let it sit for 4 to 6 weeks before you can sell it or give it away. I've recently started making and working with some of the cold process soaps, and I am finding that the 10 degree mark between your oils and your lye is very, very important. So if you're making a cold process soap, that 10 degree mark between your oils and your lye water is important. Otherwise you get brittleness and breakage and crumbling, and it's just not good. I've also found trying to soak cold process soap at very high temperatures is not good, which means there's a very long waiting period to let everything cool down. But that's also okay. So it's a learning curve. I'm still learning. So don't blast me if you see me do something wrong. If you have some positive feedback, or you see something that might help, I am all for suggestions at this point. So some of the things I've been working on with cold process soap, I'm just really kind of excited, so I'm going to show you. This is in saran wrap, but this is soap dough. I just made it. It is wrapped in plastic wrap, so I'm not technically touching it. It is a cold process. It's supposed to be airtight, so we're just going to put it back in the bowl. I'm excited to see how that comes out. I made 2 of them. I got red and white soap dough, and I'm really excited to try out and see how that works. I've also been working with some other things, colorants and cold process, but as soon as we get this mixed together, I'll show you some of the cold process soaps I've been working on. I might do a video on that, I'm not sure. My phone will only record an hour at a time, so I'm gonna pause you and get some stuff cleaned up and get ready for the next part. Okay, so while we're waiting for the lye to do its thing, the oils to melt, the tallow to melt, you are going to need a mold. I've had these for years. They have held up well. I absolutely love them. The one thing I don't love about them, sometimes they hold the essential oil smells, but it's okay. So you're gonna need a mold. And I figured I'd show you some of the cold process soaps I've been working on. I've had some along with the soap dough. Here's one. This uses some spirulina, it's alfalfa, and beetroot in there. I actually, you can see, and there's poppy seeds on top, real poppy seeds like this you can buy at the spice store. I used embeds in these. I like that one. This is one of the first ones I made. And I soaked this at too high of a temperature, and my embeds ended up being very dry and crumbly. So, learning lesson is water to bind and pour at lower temperatures for the cold process soap. That was one of my very first attempts at making some cold process soap. Here is the second one. They turned out much better. And these are all also natural colorants. This is charcoal, black walnuts. That is just coconut oil and the color of the oils. You have madder, paprika, and turmeric. And it turned out beautifully, except for, if you can see, I also poured this at too high of a temperature. So needless to say, you know, I need to learn to have a few more patience and let things cool down a little bit before I soap cold process flour. That is from some leftover soap I had. There's it's probably more madder powder. All my colorants are natural. I don't use anything that I feel is necessary. I don't use mica powders. A lot of people are using mica powders and titanium dioxide. I don't use those. It's a little menorah I piped out, cold process soap. These I tried to use some butterfly sweet pea powder on, and the color totally went out of them. Got streaks here and there. Not really sure what happened. Piped out some Hebrew letters. Which I find is like really amazing. These were just some practice items that I did. So it's just some stuff I've been practicing on and working with. I've had, these were, oh, there's another menorah. Might put these on some soaps. So, a lot of my cold process soaps also end up having some lye ash, and from my understanding, that's caused from not going through gel phase. A lot of people are forcing a gel phase. I like natural. So I don't use mica powders, because although the mica rock is 100% natural, organic, whatever word you would like to use, the colors are not. They're a lot of times synthetically made. I noticed a lot of people are using titanium dioxide for coloring, so I did some looking into that. And those are also can be, even though that's natural in the earth, that is becoming synthetically made. So I'm just gonna stray far away from them because I like stuff from the earth and not made in a lab. I just have a issue with some of that. Actually, the more it's not regulated by the FDA, the more apt I am to actually use it. So if you have other colorants that you think are good, I know you can make colorants from foods like carrots and cabbage, celery, spinach, stuff like that. Those would also be good to use in a soap. I haven't had time to try any of that. So, you know, if you have other natural colorants besides the ones that I've spoke about, or maybe ones that are actually natural and organic, that would be awesome. Clays, I know a lot of clays. I think actually the top of this might be a French pink clay, and then that's beetroot. The hardest color I have a problem with is the beetroot. No matter what I do, it seems to come up. And my soap dough, I actually used kaolin clay in it to make sure it went white and not a yellowish color, because I wanted white and not a yellow white. So I know clays, I use all the natural powders, but I don't use micas. So if you get a bright colored soap, it's probably a mica powder, and it's probably, you know, I don't know. The argument on micas is, yeah, oh, it's natural, it's organic, it comes from the earth, the colors are synthetically made. Some of the mica rock is actually becoming synthetically made in labs too. So along with, there's a big whole ethnical issue with it. So I'm just gonna stray far away from it. If I can find some pretty colored rocks out there and make pigments, because you can do that too. If you're not aware of that, you can find some videos on YouTube I've been watching and attempting to, you know, figure out. So when I'm out on walks, I'll be looking for some pretty colored rocks that I can make into pigmentations as well directly around me. So that'll be interesting when I start doing that. Okay. Bit back. Okay, all of our oils are melted. So now, see if I can do this one-handed without my spoon falling in there. We're gonna pour our lye. I usually pour and stir this at the same time. However, I do know one-handed. I'm just gonna pour a little bit and stir it up like that. I don't know why the oils do that. I think it's the butter that is. Now you guys might be able to see. Soap making takes a lot of patience, and if you know me, you know I am not a person of patience. But let me tell you, when Yahweh wants to show you something or wants to teach you a lesson, he will find that thing that you are passionate about and that you want to learn more and more about, and he's going to use that to teach you patience. So there, make sure it's well incorporated into our oils. Be careful not to splash it, because this is a caustic solution. Put your gloves on, eyewear. Make sure your vinegar is on hand. Most people bring this to a trace. I like to let it kind of sit and mingle for a few minutes. Let that just hang out, and then I'll use the immersion blender and I'll blend this up into a trace. So we'll show you that here shortly. So before I use my immersion blender in the soap, I just want to tell you one thing I have found is when I use my immersion blender, it seems to quicken the process. of cooking the soap for the hot process. So like you use your immersion blender, you can bring it to a trace. But then if you use it later on, like in the applesauce stage, it seems to bring it to a trace quicker. I don't know if I'll show you that or not, because I don't really like it going into gel phase fairly quickly. I like it to go fairly slowly. That way I have time to get my oils in, get my mold in, and all that, to be able to do that. So let's go ahead. I'll flip you over so you can see. So I stirred this up just a little bit. You can see, I don't know if you can see, I can see that separation in there. Kind of the water, like right here. There's the water and then the oils. So that's what you're trying to get mixed and merged together, because everybody knows water and oil don't mix. Your lye kind of helps that along. So let's grab the there, pump it a few times. Okay. And mine has two, so I usually make sure for some reason this does suction to the bottom, so I have to be careful that it doesn't suction and create a mess. Again, this is a caustic solution until it is fully cooked and so poundified. A lot of people will blend this until it comes to a trace. At this point, it's immersed. So I will usually leave it, and I will come back frequently and stir it, so that I know it all stays together. So there's still some, you can still see just a little bit of separation. You can continue to use your immersion blender on this for longer if you'd like. I don't find it necessary, but if you want to bring it to trace, see, it's not really tracing. For some reason, I don't know if you can see the bubbles. My immersion blender has recently started putting bubbles in my soap, so I think I need a new one. I'm not sure what's wrong with the one I have. There's that. I'm probably gonna have to make a part 2, so we're just gonna let that cook, and then I'll bring you over here. And in this, we're showing you the tallow. There's the tallow. It's all melting, it's defrosting. So, but it's not cooking. I don't want it to cook. So I'm gonna put the lid back on it, and you guys stay for watch for part 2 when we finish up the soap and show you how I make my body cream from the beard hair balm that I make. I usually use it in my hair, just as an awesome product that I use and make, and it's easier than buying toxic stuff at the store. So watch for part 2 of this video, and I'll see you next time.